So, how does it feel to be on this side of it?
Wow, God, thank you. Yeah, it is a weird time to take a creative risk. Certainly, as a trans filmmaker, maybe more so than other areas. Maybe just it's hard to take a creative risk in general right now. But I certainly feel that as a trans filmmaker. I feel like there's a war against nuance right now, and yeah, when I first heard the very, very short elevator pitch version of what this was about, I was pretty, I'll say skeptical, kind of like, whoa. And then when I read the script, I was really, really surprised and really challenged by it, and really saw this incredibly powerful kind of Trojan horse, upside down, really refreshing story. In my mind when I read the script, and I was so taken with it that I knew I kind of had to do it. I sort of felt called, and I knew it would be kind of a challenging work, at least at face value, to come out in 2019. But I kind of am pushing against, back on that about that trans filmmakers or queer filmmakers have to do safe work, and we shouldn't push boundaries, and we shouldn't make people question things or be uncomfortable, which I think there is a lot of pressure towards that right now. When you think about the origins of queer filmmaking, it's the opposite. It's always been about pushing boundaries. So I feel a responsibility to do that right now more than ever.
I think Outfest likes that a lot, right? Yeah, and I mean, even thinking about sort of the history of this story, right? So Ariel Schrag writes the book in 2011. Ariel's here, right? All right. Writes the book in 2011. It's published in sorry?
Wrote it in 2007.
7? Even earlier. Okay, so this is made, but am I right in saying that it...
Published in 2014.
Exactly, that it comes out in 2014, both of which are long before the transgender tipping point, right? Well, the 2014 is just before, right? And that whole time is this really fascinating period of hyper-evolution in the queer community. Words are changing. I'm a big words guy, right? Like when did cisgender come out, right? When did we start using that? And right, even terms like non-binary, right? These words weren't around, right? Even our concept of ourselves is just in such a really fast evolution, right? And there's this piece about it where it's our self-concept as queer and trans people has changed so quickly just since 2015 to start with source material that precedes even that, right? What were some of the things some of the sort of arguments and resonances that you found doing something in such a specific time period as 2006, then all of this history going along with it?
Yeah, so that is one of the fascinating things to me about the story is how quickly transliteracy has changed. And in fact, for some of, I think the cast members, there was I talked to Bobby, who plays Jillian, a lot about, who's a non-binary actor, about trying to kind of unlearn or pretend that they didn't know certain things that they do. So, because the audience is way ahead of the characters, obviously, In 2006, this was pretty close to the conversation that was happening, and I actually, by coincidence, lived in Bushwick in 2006, kind of in this world, unrelated to Ariel's book, but I kind of traveled in that whole scene, so I can vouch for its accuracy. But yeah, these words have really changed a lot, and it's really interesting. This was right before the T word became not cool. There was a moment right before that happened. I think it was actually which reality show? Anyway,
RuPaul's Drag Race, but let's not go.
I think it was a different show, actually. Anyway, well, there's a different history there. But yeah, we've been on warp speed with this stuff, especially since 2014. And it is really interesting to me to look back and see something that's 13 years ago and see that as a period piece. And even still, there's such a range of transliteracy that can, at any given moment. So I think that's one of the fun conceits of it is how quickly things have changed since this moment.
Yeah. So Nick, I'm curious, speaking of transliteracy, like what was this whole process like for you?
It was definitely a big learning experience, and yeah, it was such an amazing set with such amazing people, and it was just a ton of fun every day.
Fond memories.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think one really important word, if we're going to stick with words for a little while, actually is disclosure, right? Leo, there's this amazing moment where your character, says to Nick's character, right, like, sometimes I don't disclose. And so we're fighting this tension, right, of like this straight boy who's pretending to be trans and like all of the complications of that, which in a really beautiful way the film figures out for itself, right, that kind of queer reflexivity of it, which I love. But there's that dramatic sort of mic drop moment. And I think this really breaks some stuff open, even within an LGBTQ audience, right? Can you talk about trans disclosure in how it plays out here? Like, what are your...
So I'm taking your question, I was taking it in, and I think it's really important to acknowledge in the same vein as disclosure that yet another Black trans woman was murdered in North Carolina the last few days. And I believe that's, in terms of reported, I think in the last 17 months, I have another number. Her name was Denali Berries. So when we talk about disclosure, I often think about trans women of color, trans femmes of color, who most often face the violence that comes with disclosure. So I just feel like it's important to name that as we're in space. I think the last two times I've seen this now was right as news came out of another trans person being murdered. And so there's a scene, that scene that you're talking about, the disclosure scene of them watching a news segment of a trans woman of color who had been murdered, and that's what prompts, partly that's what prompts Ethan. Another, I like to think, hopefully, is him listening into the discourse around him and the way people are talking about trans folks and this idea of tricking folks. For me, that was, I've been out for a very long time. There are some spaces where I go in and I don't immediately say, hi, my name is Leo, I'm trans, are you seeing what it is? I used to do that, no. No, actually, I think disclosure has evolved. When I was in high school and middle school, I felt like I had to do that, so I did say that to a lot of folks, just so like, it's out of the room, it's before I started to when I had a high voice, like, yes, I know this is what I sound like and look like, but I see him and it is. It's totally okay to call me a guy, totally fine. Nothing's gonna, happen. And so, not to go off on too much of a tangent, but this idea of disclosure, especially for Ethan, because he's a quiet guy. He's not involved the way Casey and June and Hazel and boy Casey and Skylar are, regardless of what side he's on. And so for that was really big. I think we have this moment where Ethan's giving him his shirt, and it's challenging the idea of what a trans body can look like, not what it necessarily does look like. I mean, that's what mine looks like, but what are the different types of bodies that trans people inhabit and carry with them. And so for me, that's kind of a nice little, not tension, but kind of like we see him shirtless, and so some folks who might have more experience with trans bodies might, notice something different, and some folks who might not don't notice that. So we're still going along with this idea that he's just a big guy chilling in his room, And so, yeah, sorry to go on a tangent.
No,
I'm also really hungry, not gonna lie, so I'm hungry.
So we just got into a bunch of meaty stuff. I mean, we just sort of dove right in, which the film does too. I'm wondering, do folks have questions? We could take a couple questions from the audience at this point. Meaty questions, yes?
Are the leads in your next movie going to be trans people?
Yeah, well, my next movie, I think, at least one I'm writing right now, is a middle-aged trans guy buddy movie, so that will certainly be played by two middle-aged trans men. I do think of this as a big ensemble with a lot of queer and trans characters and actors, and the sort of irony of the lead of my first feature being a straight cis teenager is not lost on me. That's the kind of like the fact it was ironic kind of. Yeah, I guess I found it kind of a little delicious too. That I was again being like, no, I'm gonna do something different. So I guess I don't know. I'm just trying to break rules.
Move fast, break stuff. Any other questions from the audience? Yes.
Was the decision not to let us know whether he was using his dildo or his penis like intentional?
Oh, it's supposed to be clear that it's a dildo.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. But he came so fast. That was
Yeah, he was just really excited.
He faked early coming.
What?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I love it. There's a piece about this where I love the kind of, there's no moralism in this.
There's no.
Yeah, I mean, for how people were behaving moralistically, that's kind of a joke in a certain way. Like, it's real, but also kind of looking at it as, from the sideways. But it's like, we're not supposed to be like Adam.
No, that's exactly right. I don't really feel that the role of film and art is to tell tales of morality. I mean, it can do that, but I don't think it needs to do that, I'm interested in depicting complexity and kind of running towards the complicated thing instead of away from it. So, yeah, you're right in your assessment of that, Scott.
You're right that that's what you did. Does somebody have a complicated question?
Can I just say that it's Nick, right? You freaking blew my mind when you walked into this room with your sparkly shirt and your long hair. And Ryhs, when you met Nick, how did he present the audition? Because your acting ability is shocking because you look like the hippest fucking guy in the world.
If I read compliments on this audition.
I don't remember that. I will say that Nick has an incredible ability to embody this character and to embody an age and mentality that is way below where he actually is as a person. And I don't know, that's supposed to be a compliment. I don't know, that's kind of weird. No, actually, ironically, the role of Adam was the hardest role to cast in the whole movie, hands down. Like, every queer trans role was kind of slam dunk and easy to find incredible talent very quickly. It was really hard to find an actor who could really carry this particular role. So that's obviously a testament to how much queer and trans talent there is out there. But we did a nationwide, actually international search for an actor to play Adam, and I think it had already been a year or something of searching, and we knew that we could only shoot in 2017 if we found the actor to play Adam in time to shoot while there would still be leaves on the trees in New York City. So we found Nick in Florida, just in the nick of time. No pun intended. And then we knew we could go ahead and start shooting that year, and then started casting all the other roles after that, and found Leo actually on Instagram, and he had never acted before.
I was cracking up with the whole L Word thing because Leo was about to be on the reboot of the L Word.
Just full circle because of the scene that they're watching.
But Nick, also to say you were spectacular.
It's true. I got to say to Nick, this is what I thought when I first saw it, but I was so happy to be able to say to Nick, it's Nick's sort of Nickness, whatever that is, in that moment where he doesn't disclose that he's not trans, right? You see all that sort of puppyish innocence, and you don't hate him for it. It's so much less problematic because of how you embodied it, of how you did it. So, way to make the movie, dude.
I also want to take a look at Ryhs. we talked about a lot about how to get to that point of, you know, making him sympathetic in a way, kind of. But yeah, that was one thing.
Yeah, it was really important to me that it was an accident, you know, and that there was no premeditation here at all. And I think, you know, also working with Ariel, the script had really evolved a lot since the book. And I read the script first and then went back and read the book, and I was like, oh, these are really different, you know, works in a way, even though they're drawing from the same kind of ideas. And then we worked together to push it even further. And, you know, it takes a village, obviously, you know.
I love it. We have, yes. Okay, 2 questions. I have a person with long hair. Yeah.
I love the character Jillian, and I think it's really cool that for most of the film you see her through Adam's eyes, but then by the end of it, when she tells him that she knew, you kind of realize that she goes through a whole arc herself and realization herself. So how did you go about directing Bobby and figure out like the beats where Jillian realizes that Adam is actually obsessed?
Yeah, because it doesn't happen on screen when Jillian realizes it. We actually talked about it, and like Bobby and I, like, when could it have happened? How could it have happened? And we decided together that maybe Jillian tried to go find his MySpace, and I was like, what the fuck? Maybe that, but that said, I think it was true. You know, it was something evolving in her kind of consciousness, and she started to kind of, you know, there's a moment when, you know, they're watching that movie where Adam almost tries to burst the bubble, and she's not ready to do it yet. And I just thought that kind of mutual deception or self-deception was really fascinating. But working with, you know, a queer, non-binary actor for Jillian was just so incredible. And our first conversation about the character was like, talking about how Jillian's embarrassed about her gender essentialism because she had studied women's studies. It was like, that was the first conversation about the character. So it was starting at such a high level of awareness of what all these things mean, and which I think brought so much to the character, and I think their performance is just amazing.
Okay, 2 last questions. Person here and then someone in the back.
So, terrific film, congratulations, funny, sad. Maybe you could talk about the path of getting it produced and distribution and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, let's see. I think the script was in development for a little while with James Seamus and Howie Gertler, the producers of the movie, before I came on. They were looking for a director and emailed me and were like, do you want to talk about the script? We're kind of ready to go and looking for the right director, which is a very unusual email to get as a filmmaker. And like I said, I was not certain about how the topic would have been handled before I read the script, and I was kind of nervous I would have to say, actually, sorry, you know, based on the premise like we talked about. And like I said, I was so taken with it, surprised, that I jumped in really fast. And so it was already financed, and we were looking for the lead once I jumped in, and then I cast the whole movie. So it kind of creatively, you know, I took the ball and ran with it. And we premiered at Sundance this January, and have found our distribution partners with Wolf out of premiering at Sundance. And actually, we're going to come out in theaters in about a month. So I'm glad you asked. And yeah, if you like the movie, I would love it if you guys tell your friends, whatever, tell, you know, strangers on the internet. But yeah, we're gonna premiere come out in New York and LA in about a month, mid-August, and then outwards from there. And our trailer is actually about to come out next week too, so keep an eye out for that.
Keep an eye out. All right, this one last one really quickly because we got to clear the theater.
The details were amazing, spot on. Talk about all of it. No, talk about how you like knew that Mira song.
Yes.
Felt and the Anita Franco, like nailed it.
Thank you. Well, I feel like that was, you know, half Ariel and half I, because a lot of those details were in the script when I read it. And like I said, I lived in Bushwick in 2006, so I was like, oh my God, they go to the Hole. Like, I went to the Hole, like, every Friday, and, like, literally, that was my favorite club. So there was a lot of real details that were in there, and I had the lived experience to be able to drop in a lot more. And Renoir's has this thing that I like to rip off, that is, when you're creating a fiction, leave the window open and let some of the real world in. So,
Amen.
hey, maybe I'll leave it with that.
Ryhs Ernst, Nick Alexander, Leo Shen,